Good morning. Welcome back to another beautiful, partly cloudy, cold January morning here in Eastern North Carolina. I can't do other projects right now, but what I can do is work here in the garden and do some of the work that needs to get done before spring. And I'm particularly in the rose garden today, and what I plan on doing is trying to stake out or map out the rest of the rose garden. If you've seen my previous videos, you know that I started over by the vegetable garden. I have a line of roses going along that. I have some lovely stuff growing that some of the deer have nibbled on, but for the most part the rose garden is doing well. I'm going to continue down along the vegetable garden fence line towards the front of the vegetable garden this year. I hopefully will continue that, and then I will turn down the front of the rose garden, down along what would be the front of the rose garden as well this year, hopefully making it towards the archway, which I'll be purchasing later this year, that I will have a climbing rose growing up and over. That archway will be the entrance from the grand walkway into the rose garden. If some of this stuff is a bit confusing, or if you can't picture it in your head, feel free to go over to my website, growingagreenfinger.com. There I have, under, I think it's more and then garden, I have a little map that kind of lays out the way the garden is, and until the rose garden finally gets done. Like I said last year, this will probably be like a 5-year project at the very least. But today I want to finish marking out the back corner where that's going to be. Again, this rose garden is going to be 60 feet deep by 80 foot at one end, and I think 60 foot at the other, but that's what I want to mark out today. It's a little cold, so I'm going to be, I got a little fire going right now. I'll be adding some wood that I cut down from other parts of the garden to this as well today. I have some pallet wood which I want to burn. Now the pallet wood is not heat treated, so any and all ashes that this fire produces will not go into the vegetable garden. They will go elsewhere, probably into the rose garden here, or especially along the back side, which as I work today you'll see that all evolve, hopefully. But the back half of this rose garden tends to flood when we have heavy rains. The other day we had, I think, had 3 inches fall within about 28-30 hours, and this was pretty much a swamp. In fact, the back area is still very soft and there are puddles of water still sitting. Again, it's because I have the heavy clay silty soil, which doesn't really allow for the water to drain out that quickly. A lot of it tends to sit on the ground and then slowly permeates into the ground as the ground allows. So all that being said, I have work to do, and again, part of today's will not only be marking out, but I want to try to start putting up the back boundary. I'm going to take some wood chips from the wood pile that's here in the wood chip pile that's here in the middle of the yard, and I will be moving that to the back over here again, my plan is to start raising the ground up. Once upon a time along the tree line there used to be a drainage ditch that is since filled in with nature. You know, there's sediment and soil and pine needles and fallen trees, and all that's filled in the drainage ditch. So that's another reason why the back of the property floods. So I'm going to wind up putting in some marking stakes. I'm going to start outlining where the garden is going to be. I'm going to start filling that in with wood chips, and I'm going to stop talking now and get to work. Good, very good. If you can see the stakes there behind me, let me kneel down here. The two stakes. That denotes the entrance to the rose garden from the grand walkway. So I'm gonna have, again, if you're new, if you haven't been paying attention, if all this is confusing with the stakes, I'm gonna have a 20-foot wide walkway that basically leads from the house or from that side of the driveway all the way to the far end of the property. And over here I have the vegetable garden. Here we're in the rose garden. On the other side will probably be either flower or, yeah, it's going to be part of the flower garden. And then a little further down will be a new area that I'm looking at developing called the grass borders, a la Monty Don. Different shape, different style, but I think a alley of grass, and then finally the orchard. So again, all this is going to be a little confusing. Hopefully I can get a drone up some point later this year and you'll get more of an aerial view and it might start making more sense to you. Again, if you go to growinggreenfinger.com, under more gardens, you can see, or garden, you should see the layout that basically I'm going with. And I'm going to actually be doing an update for that soon for 2022. The map that's up there now is just for 2021, so I'm going to add to that and update it, and then it'll be 2022. What I may wind up doing is leaving the every year, sort of 2021, 2022, 2023. I can't believe I'm saying that. I'm getting old. But I'm going to be leaving, I think, maybe those maps up. This way you could follow along with the progression. And of course, as the years go on, I may leave the 2021 garden and then jump to 2025 and then 2030, and who knows if I'll even still be alive at that point. But here denotes, at least these two posts, the entrance to the grand walkway. Now let me show you some of the other posts that I put in and what they mean. Okay, so in front of us here, right here and here, are the posts from the vegetable garden into the rose garden. On your bottom right hand corner, you could even see a bit of the rose garden bed. And in front of you, you see the pile that I'm making that will eventually rot down as compost, or will be used as compost for the rest of the rose garden. Off in the distance, way out there, that's the spot where it's just waving my arms. That is the other side of the rose garden, and that will eventually be the gate leading out onto the next area underneath that pine over there, which will be a more natural wild garden. And when we get to that point, I'll explain more. So over here I have the gate that will lead to the next garden section. And back over here, I have the corner of the rose garden. Now, the pine trees back here, between the rose garden and those pine trees, I'm going to leave open as an alleyway. I can drive my tractor through, but the back line, the back row of the rose garden will be solid. So there won't be a way to enter that, at least right now as the plans go, from the back. It'll be solid. Part of that reason, my thinking right now, is to try to control the deer, in a sense. I can't stop the deer from doing deer things like eating my plants, but I can make a hedgerow of deer-resistant plants, and I'll have a gate over there, and so when the deer start moving through the space, because they usually like to avoid and stick close to the tree line, they can move down that back alleyway. They won't come into the rose garden because there'll be a row of hedges eventually, and they can dart off into the woods like they already do now. So it's just about controlling their movements in a sense and trying to keep them out of the rose garden. Again, deer will do what deer will do. This is one of the joys of gardening here in the countryside. So I'm going to stop talking now because that sun is blaring in my eyes. Okay, many hours later. Wow, I am thirsty. But I'm afraid if I take a break, I won't get back up and keep going. And there's still more work to be done today, because I don't know how much time I'll have either later in the week because there's a storm coming, or the following weeks because there's a greenhouse coming. So I want to try to get as much done today, even if it kills me, which it might, but we'll see. So you may have seen me cutting some branches. There are small trees, because behind me I have all those pine trees. There's actually there were a lot of dead fallen trees. So now let me show you what I did with those dead fallen trees. You can already see some laying there, but let me show you. Okay, so there's the cement slab and the back of the vegetable garden and the wood chip mounds. And what I was doing is I was laying out right along the back edge these tree trunks, and there's the back corner, the other back corner of the vegetable garden, rose garden, I apologize. Woo-hoo-hoo, tired. There's the gate, or what will be the gate, and then the line continues up to the front stake, and then we cut back around. There's going to be the front entrance over there. Let me just move over this way. Front entrance to the rose garden. And if we keep panning, there's the front corner of the vegetable garden. If I pan around some more, there's the rose garden that I've built up to this point, and then there's the gate over there. Well, all that's great, Jay, you may say. But just because you've defined the borders, what does that mean for the rose garden itself? And so what I'm going to start doing next is I'm going to take my tractor with my Gorilla Cart bucket, and I'm going to start taking those wood chips that were by the front of the rose garden that are actually in the grand walkway. And I'm going to start taking those, and I'm going to start spreading them along all these tree trunks that I've laid out on the ground, which defines the border. And that's going to do two things. Hopefully start to kill off the grass if I lay it thick enough. This grass is amazing. I've never experienced grass like this before in my life. It doesn't care. The grass doesn't care about you or your feelings or what you want to do. It just grows. It grows everywhere. It grows through 8-10 inches of soil. It's amazing. But I digress. So I'm going to start taking the wood chips, and I'm going to start laying them along the borders that I've laid out today, the front and the side. And again, you got to remember, these beds are going to be 12 feet deep, much as they are over here. But instead of taking instead of using a lot of compost to raise up the ground, again, the area floods back here, to raise up the ground, what I'm going to start doing is laying out these wood chips, okay, on the ground. And I'll lay some out today, I'll lay some out tomorrow, the day after, etc. And over the next 3 to 5 years, because remember I said this is probably going to take 3 to 5 years, the wood chips will rot down. I will also add grass clippings as I mow the lawn throughout the year, and I'll add that to that. Much as I had in that back corner over here, which now is off frame. But I started doing that back there, and hopefully by the end of, well, probably next spring actually. So probably next spring I will plant a tree back there, because by then the wood chips and the grass should be rotted down sufficiently, whereas it's essentially really good compost. And I will add compost to that, and I'll mix it all in, and I'll plant a tree. Now that tree will probably be about 6 to 8 inches above ground level, which is good, because when it does flood, that tree won't have all of its roots submerged. Eventually the tree will grow its roots out into the ground as I expect it to do, and that's fine, that's what I want to do. But no plant likes to be completely submerged unless you're like cypress, seaweed, something along those lines. So anything I can do to raise these plants up from above the water line, as it were, which is ground level, oh, that'll be that much better. And again, as I get to these areas, you know, again, the wood chips will rot down, the grass will rot down, I will add compost to it, and then it'll just be a beautiful, beautiful material to plant into. That's what I'm doing next. So let me stop talking and start working. Alright, so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just going getting carts loads of the wood chips and I'm spreading them all on the ground. Now this is just the beginning. Again, I want these wood chips to probably be a little thicker. Right now they're about 1 inch to 2 inches. I'd like them maybe 3 to 4 inches. I'm gonna, once the springtime comes and the grass starts growing, all the grass that gets cut will be put on here. And again, that'll help rot down and provide great planting material. It'll also raise the ground level from what normally is flooded. When we do get floods, because we will throughout the rest of the winter, because that's just the way it goes, and probably into the spring when we get those heavy downpours, those spring rains, that will also help keep the material wet and again provide help it rot down. Now these timbers that I put down, these trunks, they are temporary. They're just to provide a guide, and I may wind up putting like railroad ties or something else in here eventually once these all start to rot back, because, well, most of them are already half rotten. They're not fresh wood, they're old wood that I just pulled from the tree line there. So again, I'm just going to keep doing this all the way down and around, and again, it's just a matter of continuously working at this, and hopefully in maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years, we'll see. Maybe sooner. I'm not going to make any promises. I will be planting. This is again the back of the rose garden, and it will start getting, I will start planting it up. Looking at the plans I had drawn up and the reality of the layout today, I'm 4 feet shorter or 6 feet shorter on the far side, and that changes the layout of the back of the rose garden, how I want it to look and lay out. That's not the end. It's not the end of the world. It was something I kind of expected, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen until I actually started laying this out. And now, having seen it and gotten it down, as it were, concrete, now I can start finalizing those plans on paper. And again, I will work down along the front, and eventually the far side. I'll start planting that up in a couple of years, and then finally the back here. Now that's not to say that at some point in the next, let's say, 2 years, I don't prioritize the far corner or something else so I can plant a tree or a shrub. That may happen. So again, you have to subscribe. Hit that bell icon to be notified when I do post a new video. This way you know what's happening, when it's happening, and how the garden is developing. Wow. I'm tired. I think I might call it quits. Maybe I'll do another load or two. I'm not sure. Either way, I'm not going to bore you anymore. Thank you to all the new subscribers, because I know there are some of you who are out there. Please subscribe. Tell your friends, families, loved ones. Grumpy old guy across the street. I've got this YouTube channel. I'm building a garden here from scratch in eastern North Carolina. If you like, check out all the links below. I have another channel called Badwood Goods, and an Etsy store by the same name. Please go check them out. The Etsy store, I have some wooden seed trays for sale. So if you'd like maybe a wood seed tray instead of that crappy plastic one that you're using, go check out those links below. I think that's going to wrap it up for today. I'm tired. I'm going to catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.